we find ourselves back in the channel once more, and in this tutorial we're going to be adding not only custom trees but also custom tree generation to our mod, and this is going to be, well, quite a little bit of a longer tutorial, but bear with me, it is going to be pretty good. So we're going to first of all start by adding the logs, the woods, the strip variants, the planks, the sapling, and all of that, so all of the blocks, and for that we actually need a custom block. So in our custom package, we're going to right-click New Java class, and this is going to be the Mod Flammable Rotated Pillar Block. Now, if this is insanity to you, then I agree with you, but this is actually what we're going to need. This is going to extend the Rotated Pillar Block class. This one, different methods. First of all, the isFlammable method. Then we need the getFlammability method. We need to also override the getFireSpread method. And then last but not least, getFireSpread speed. That is it. Yeah, there you go. And then also the getToolModifiedState method. So what do those do? Well, obviously the isFlammable method just says, well, is this, particular block flammable or not? And of course it is. The getFlammability is going to be 5, and the getFireSpread speed here is all values for other logs, right? So this is of course a log, right? The rotated pillar block right here going to be just like an oak log or a wood or a stripped log basically. And you can actually look this up, press shift twice and look for the fire block. And if we go into this, and at the very bottom here somewhere, right here in the bootstrap method, you can see we set the flammability of certain things. And this is exactly the values that we have. So you can see planks actually have 5 and 20. We're going to figure out the planks in a moment. Same with logs here. You can see there are 5 and 5. And that's why I put the 5 and 5 in here, and that's going to be fine. And then when it comes to the getToolModifiedState method, there's a few ways that you can do this basically. One thing you're always going to check for is whether or not if context.getItemInHand.getItem is instance of an axe item. That's usually always what you're going to have to do here. And then you can go about this in a lot of different ways. Now, I'm just going to make this a little bit more, I would say, hard-coded, but that's going to be... If you add more than that, I suggest possibly making a map here instead of just doing it like this. So what we have is we're going to have state.is mod blocks. So if we are going to use a block, and that's going to be the red_maple_log.get, which of course at the moment doesn't exist yet, but that's okay. We're just going to finish the if statements, and then we're going to continue with this in a moment. And this is going to be the wood mod blocks, of course. There you go. Right, and once again, it doesn't exist yet because of course we haven't added it yet. But whatever, we're going to go back to this because we now have an error here, and that's exactly right. Sometimes it's all sorts of crazy and you forget that. So let's go into the mod blocks class and actually register all of our blocks here. So this is going to be a very interesting thing. So let's just take the so let's just do the jumpy block then. There you go. And then let's get one of them, and then we're going to copy that as well. Now all of the code, as always, of course, is available to you in the description below. Get a repository and individual gist as well. This is the Mod Flammable Rotated Pillar Block and oak log. There you go. We don't need the strength over here. And in theory, we also don't need this because I believe that the oak log has this already, but we're going to be fine. We're going to keep it like this for the time being. And now we can duplicate this 4 times, actually quite a few more times. Let's actually do something like this. So now we can actually copy this a few times. So we have 4 different ones of this, and then the log. This is going to be the planks, this is going to be the leaves, and then this is going to be the sapling. I believe those should be everything that we need. So let's continue here. Red maple, wood. And of course, make sure to change the name here, otherwise you will get an error. And we'll also change oak.wood. So it is very easy to make a mistake here. It can just happen, right? Like it's different types of wood that you might want to add. Then what I suggest you do is you basically have to take a look at another way of this for every type of wood. And let's not even start with all of the other blocks that you would then madness, right? So at that point, you should probably try and see if you can find some other way of doing it. Regardless of that, though, we're now only adding one part of wood or one type of wood, and also only one different tree over here. So this is now going to be a block over here, and this is going to be a leaves block. Very important that we change this around. Then also this is going to be the stripped oak log. Yes, this is going to be taken from the stripped oak wood. Now, I don't think that this is necessarily important. I just like to have this, separated properly. I think it does make sense. This is going to be the planks over here, namely the oak planks, and this is going to be oak leaves. There you go. That is perfect. Now, let's first of all jump back into the mod rotated pillar block, and there we go. Now we have this, and now we need to return the new state. So what is even going on with the get tool modified state method? Well, basically, this is called when you right click this particular block, and then it's going to check, hey, do we have a certain item? Mainly, are we right-clicking with an X item? If we do, then we want to turn the stripped maple log.get.default state, and this is extremely important, set value of axis state.getValue axis. Basically, if the block points up, right, as a normal tree that grows does, right, then that's totally fine. You right click it and that would be the default state. However, if the block is on its side and you right click, then if we only return the default block state here, then it would all of a sudden turn the the value of the axis block property here as well, and that would be fine. Now let's just copy the return variable here, and let's just change this to the wood right here, and that would be pretty much it. Now, yes, you would need to add those two if statements for every type of log and stripped variant you have. This is what I'm saying. The best way to do this, long term, is probably to just make a map in this class, right? Just make a static right here. Shouldn't be anything too crazy. Of course, some Java knowledge is required, but that at this point is probably going to be a normal thing going forward. Now, the next thing, the planks and the leaves right now would not burn. This is because a normal block doesn't burn. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an anonymous class right here. So we're just going to, after the closing parentheses of the block constructor, we're just going to put in the curly brackets here, and then we can overwrite the isFlammable method. And we're going to overwrite the getFlammability method, and we'll also overwrite the getFireSpreadSpeed method. And we're just going to, well, basically put in what we need. So this is true. This is going to be 5. That is, take both of the curly brackets here, and we're just going to do the same thing for the leaves. Now, those are actually different. Those actually have a flammability of 30 and a spread speed of 60. And there we go. Now our leaves and our planks should also burn totally fine. That's pretty good. Now that we've added this, we can also now go on to the sapling here. So we can see this is the sapling, and there's of course the red maple sapling. This will take in this will be a new sapling block, which actually is going to need another parameter here. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to put in a comma here and do nothing in here. So I want the error here because we're going to add the other thing right here in a moment. This is going to be the oak. And there we go. And then we're going to add this in a moment because this actually is already part of WorldGen a little bit. So spawning a tree already has some WorldGen in it. But before we go into the WorldGen, I actually want to copy over all of the different JSON files and all of that. No worries at all. Now, all of those are, of course, as always, available to you in the description below. GitHub repository individual just as well. And you can see, there we go. So those are these ones, right, for all of our blocks, the leaves, the logs, planks, sapling, the wood, and the two strip variants. We've added all of that. And also the language, of course. Let's get the translation in here as well. There we go. At this point, this should not be anything crazy, nothing that you haven't seen before. So there you go. And then the models, the block models are pretty insane. We're going to look into the block states JSON files in just a moment one more time. But the block model files are pretty insane. So let's just get those over. All right, so these are the block model files. You can see 11 of them. It is pretty freaking crazy. You can see there's a lot of them. And overall, they're not complicated. I believe here we do want to add the cutout as well. So we want to add the render_type cutout. I believe this is how we should do it. There you go. That's also quite important. And we also do want to add this to the sapling as well. I believe that this is also not added. There you go. So we should add both of those, and that will be fine as well. That's pretty good. Right, and then for the rest of them, I mean, pretty much they're just, they just have the cube column over here, and they always just point to certain textures. These are a little more complicated, but nothing that we haven't seen before. So they just have the axis block state property here with X, Y, and Z as their 3 values, and they then just point to different textures a little bit as well, or different models, I guess, as well as rotated around a little bit. So nothing insane, nothing crazy. Nothing that you are hoping for, so let's just get those over as well. And those are also just the same idea, right? They just point back to the block model file, and I believe all of them do except for the sapling. That one just points to the actual texture in the block folder because, well, the texture that is displayed in a sapling in this cross fashion is actually the same texture that is displayed in the inventory. That is why we literally only have one texture for it, so nothing crazy there. Let's get the textures as well. They're all block textures, and those are, of course, also all available to you. Let's just get them. The stripped variants and the normal variants should be 7 of them. And there we go. So now the blocks textures are, now the textures have been added, the JSON files have been added, and we can proceed with the first step of the world generation, basically, which is spawning the tree from the sapling itself. Called tree. And inside of there, we're going to make a new Java class, and this is going to be the Red Maple Tree Grower. Yes, just making sure that we write tree correctly. There you go. And this will extends the tree grow abstract tree grower. This is exactly right. We're going to hover over this, implement the get configured feature method right here, and that will be that. Now we're actually class. The first thing we want to do is we want to, well, add the red maple as a new field right here. So this is going to be a public static final red configured feature question mark, and this is going to be the red underscore maple. Now I will be copying over the entire thing here because it is pretty insane. However, no worries. We're going to go through line by line. So this is going to look quite like this. Right, that we've seen this before, right? We're just registering this particular registry object of type tree, and then we need a tree configuration builder over here. And that is the thing that is quite interesting. The first parameter here is a simple block state provider of the log. This is going to be the block that is going to be displayed as your, well, trunk, basically, right? This is going to be the trunk, and then the straight trunk placer is the type of, well, the type or how this particular block is being placed down. If we middle mouse button click on this, you can see there's a trunk placer class, and if I click on it and press Ctrl H, there's different types of trunk placers. Now you can make your own as well, but it is quite complicated, which is something that we're not going to do here, but it is possible in theory with some sufficient Java knowledge. And yes, you could make a gold tree with diamond leaves. It would work in theory. I mean, be my guest, right? Try it out, test out stuff. That is always a great idea. Then we have the blob foliage placer. So this is the same idea as the trunk placer. If we middle mouse button click on this, the foliage placer class, you can see different types of foliage placers, basically a different way of placing down the leaves. In this case, just taking the blob one with 2, 0, and 4, try different numbers and then see what happens. The 2 layers feature size is still a thing that is a little bit of a mystery to me. I believe, if I recall correctly, this sort of determines how many trees can like spawn next to each other and like those things basically. Although I'm still not 100% sure because World Gen, as always, and as I've mentioned plenty of times before, is quite the complicated beast to manage. Whatever the case may be, this is the configured feature that we now need to return right here. So this is the configured, mod configured features.redmaple, and I believe that this should be fine. No, we actually do want to do get holder.get. That should be okay. And then that will be fine. Now in the mod blocks class, we can now say a new red maple tree grower. And now actually all of our errors should be gone and everything should in theory already work, at least for, well, placing down the sapling and then having the tree spawn. So for the time being, what we're going to do is we're going to go into the game for the first time, see if our sapling actually grows, and then we'll continue and actually also let's look at the sapling. All right, we find ourselves in Minecraft again, and there we go. We can see, set it down, and we bone meal it. It should grow at some point. There we go. Now, the leaves will decay over here. That is actually completely expected because we're going to fix that in a moment as well. But overall, that is pretty awesome indeed. Now, the actual sapling itself should also grow with time. So if we just do the random tick speed, and we're just going to increase this to a ridiculous up pretty fast as well. So there you go. And that is pretty awesome. So the sapling works. Now let's go on to the world generation. Right, first of all, to fix the decaying leaves, you have to go to the data folder to Minecraft and add another block over here, or a block tag rather, and that is going to be the logs tag, logs.json. So let's just get the way that a tag file looks. And here we're just going to add all 4 different types of logs. So it's going to look kind of like leaves will not decay anymore. Now we'll continue with the world generation. So for our custom world gen, we're going to need a lot of things, and that is we have one configured feature right here, right now. Now we're going to be able to convert this, so to speak, into a place feature. That place feature is going to be made into another configured feature, and that configured feature is then going to be made into a last place feature, which is then going to be referenced once again in a custom, where is it, right here, biomodifier, and that will then spawn. So first of all, we then now need the new placed feature, and that is the checked one. Now I will be copying this over, but no worries at all. All of this is available. That complicated. It is of course a registry object of placed feature. It is called red maple checked, and we're registering a new placed feature right here called red maple checked. All right, making a new placed feature, referencing the red maple the configured feature red maple. This maple sapling will survive. Now this is actually extremely important, because otherwise your block will, or your tree will just spawn anywhere, including inside of the, inside of other trees. So you might have like 2 or 3 trees stacked on top of each other, because it doesn't check for the sapling survivability, and that is why this place feature is actually quite important. And now we're going to take the place feature that we've just made right here, and we're going to, well, convert it, so to speak, into another configured feature. That is the red maple spawn, and you can see, once again, a configured feature, this time of random feature configuration, and it has a weighted place feature list here. And what this basically does is, well, 50% of the time we're choosing the red maple checked, and another 50% idea on how to basically skip this step. Please do feel free to leave me a comment down below. Otherwise, you just have to take this step, and there you go. And now on to the last placed feature, luckily, which is the red maple placed. And we're going to see it actually is not that crazy. This is, there you go. So you can once again see is red maple placed here, and as a place feature, it uses the red maple spawn that we've just made, this one right here, and then it has a tree placement, and this is extremely important, of count extra, and this number in particular is very important. So what these numbers mean is that it spawns three different trees, and then it has a 10% chance of spawning 2 more trees. Now what's important is this chance right here is very particular. And with very particular, I mean that when you have this chance, it has to be 1 divided by the chance, so this would be 10%, has to be an integer, right? So you can put in 0.1, that works. You can put in 0.2, that also works. You can put in 0.25, because that also works. What you cannot put in, for example, is something like 4.5, because that is not going to be an integer, and then you will get an error. I don't know why this is made so weirdly, because if we look into the count extra, this is basically what happens here, right? So this whole thing basically does exactly that. It checks whether or not when you divide by this particular float, that you get an integer out of it. So please make sure to get an integer out of it, otherwise you will get an error. It looks kind of like, what does it look like? It will say chance data cannot be represented as list weight. If you get this, it means that your chance right here is wrong. This is very strange to me, but it is what it is. Whatever the case may be, though, we now have the placed feature, so we can go into the tutorial mod. So data folder, tutorial mod forge biomodifiers. If you've already added this via the origin, that would be great. And then let's just copy over one of them. That's going to be the add. This is the add red maple. And what we're going to do is we're going to add this to, how about we add this in the plains biome? I think that does make sense. Right, so we're going to use the red underscore maple underscore placed. Of course, referencing the name right here. And with that, I mean this one right here. You can also just copy it, making sure that this is correct. And then this is also important. This is now vegetal underscore decoration. There we go. And that would pretty much be everything that we need to do. Now, of course, like quite a few steps, of course. But regardless of that, that should be pretty much all that we need. So let's go into the game, make a new world, and see if it works. As I've said, be sure to make a new world right here. So let's just create this. Of course, you're going to get the warning again. And then let's see if we can find our custom trees inside of the plains biome. Very interesting stuff. Alright, find ourselves back in Minecraft, and I mean, there we go. The trees are already spawning here. This is probably a plains biome, of course, right? There you go. It is a plains biome. And our trees are spawning, and you can see Well, the numbers basically shake out to be exactly this. I highly recommend, as always, just playing around with the numbers a little bit, taking a look at the vanilla classes for the trees, and then you're going to find some other ways of spawning them as well. But yeah, there you go. This is pretty much how to add a tree and custom tree generation to Minecraft. Right, and that concludes this tutorial right here. I hope you found this useful and you learned something new, and I'll see you all in the next tutorial. So, yeah.